So again, my name is Jillian. I'm going to be leading today's webinar, and I'm a member of the TLSS, which is the Teaching and Learning Support Service here at the University of Ottawa. So we're here to help support you both in the current unprecedented situation we find ourselves in, but also for any questions you might have when we step back to face-to-face classroom experiences, or if you're looking to develop new strategies online as well. So we're here to support you in all the different avenues of your educational practice, not just for the digitally distance learning supported side of it. Both, you are always welcome to reach out to us at this email address for any of the support you require. So as I mentioned today, we are going to be discussing specifically how to use Microsoft Teams, which is one of the newer programs that we have available to us to support your video conferencing needs through Brightspace or Virtual Campus. So we'll be going through several different steps. And again, it is going to take about 45 minutes for today's presentation and to step through the tool so that you can see what's available to you with the specific processes we'll be talking about today. As I mentioned, we will have a bit of time at the end for questions. And so if you feel there's something specific that you'd like to address, please don't hesitate to wait until that point. So as mentioned today, we're focusing on Microsoft Teams, which is one of the newer software tools that we have available to support our teaching. And specifically, we are going to be talking about it and how to use it to support your live video conferencing needs, such as what you might need for delivering your lectures online or your office hours, or also for recording asynchronous lectures. So we are going to be approaching it from both the how do you do a meeting side to also how do you record your lecture side. So as a little bit of background, first and foremost, just what is Microsoft Teams? Teams is a project management tool created by Microsoft. And this is very important because although there's a lot of functionality in Teams that we can use for educational purposes, this isn't the core of the program. Although Microsoft has really been looking to develop Teams for educational purposes, as I'm sure you can be aware of the situation we're in, why that might be a great idea for them, and they've really amped up development recently. A lot of the functionality is designed to make interaction and work between peers very effective and efficient, which isn't always ideal when we're talking about classroom dynamics or classroom management. It also means that there's a lot of development happening right now with new functionality coming out almost every week as Microsoft tries to flesh out some of the tools and some of the functionality in the system that you might expect to see from the other tools that you have access to. So what does this mean for you? Well, this means that although you're going to see a lot of functions and tools listed in Teams, we are strongly recommending at this point that you only make use of the tool to supplement what we already have available to us in Brightspace, our virtual campus tool. So this is because our learning management system, Brightspace, has been designed to support educational tasks with an eye to how you as an instructor would want to store content, track student engagement, and provide feedbacks on assessments and handle grading. So although you'll see similar tools in Teams, having explored both in depth, Brightspace is really far superior when it comes to those core educational functionalities. That being said, we recognize that our virtual campus or Brightspace doesn't have enabled video conferencing, and Teams can support in that avenue, as can the other tools that might available to you at the university, such as Adobe Connect or Zoom. It's worth mentioning that if you aren't looking to do live or synchronous lecturing with your students, or if you're already comfortable with the tool that you're using, you do not need to use Microsoft Teams for instruction. Although we do recommend taking a chance to explore it and getting used to using it to collaborate with your colleagues because it is really fantastic for those functionalities. So for those of you who are already doing synchronous lecturing, you might be wondering what makes Teams different from, say, Adobe Connect or Zoom, which you may already be using. And again, although we do not have a timeline on when a Zoom license for the university will be available, we do have confirmation from IT that one will become available shortly. So in brief, all of these tools allow you to schedule meetings and make those links available in Brightspace. All of them also allowed you to record your lectures and make those recordings available in Brightspace. However, some are more user-friendly than others. And so if that is really key to what you're doing, please reach out to us at the TLSS and we're happy to really provide you guidance on your specific requirements. So specific to each platform, though, are a few keynotes. So for Adobe Connect, this is something that you'll see, as you can see as we move through it today, has a lot of options when it comes to incorporating different types of tools in one interface. It also lets you use breakout rooms and in-session polling. The key thing here, though, is that we really do have a limited number of licenses available for Adobe Connect. And so if you are already comfortable with Adobe Connect and you see yourself looking to continue using this tool, please reach out ASAP to ensure that there is space being reserved for your course in the system. So that is something we really do want to make a note of. If you want to keep using Adobe Connect, please reach out to let us at the TLSS and also Contact North know that that's something your course is going to require. For Teams, Teams supports live captioning of lectures, which works really great in English, does not work in French. And this is a great option if you want to be leveraging the other collaborative tools available to you in Teams. So if you're going to be doing a lot of persistent group work and you want to be able to monitor those interactions between your students for assessment. It's worth noting that at this point in time, Teams does not have breakout rooms or polling integrated with the lectures, or the meetings, I should say. So just be aware of that. Last but not least, Zoom. Zoom is probably the most user-friendly of the tools you have access to. It's a very efficient setup, and it's very restricted in what functionality it's providing to you. It really is a video conferencing tool. It does have access to breakout rooms and some varieties of in-session polling, and really it has great user management tools, which can be really useful for that classroom management. So again, at the end of the day, if you're already comfortable using Adobe Connect or Zoom, or if you rely on that breakout room or in-session polling, there is no benefit or need for you to switch to Microsoft Teams at this point in time, unless you're also planning to take advantage of those more collaborative features in Teams. Okay, so now that we've covered that, which I'm sure no one has any questions about, although I can see questions popping up, let's go and we'll actually talk about how you leverage Teams for video conferencing with that Brightspace integration. So the simplest way to use Teams for video conferencing is actually to leverage its integration with Brightspace and to add the meeting directly to your Brightspace course. So this makes it easy for you to create meetings and for your students to find where they need to go in order to access those meetings when they're going to be happening. There are some limitations to adding your meetings through Brightspace, mainly that the meeting isn't going to be integrated automatically with your calendar, or if you are using Teams, it's not going to show up in your channel there. But by doing it through Brightspace, for those of you who aren't familiar with Teams and who are uncertain about using that platform, this is going to let you do those features and to set up your meetings through Brightspace. That being said, there are some initiation processes that we are going to need to step through in both Teams and Brightspace, and these are particularly important if you are going to be recording your lectures. So first and foremost, you will need to request that a team is created for you. So at this point in time, there is no automated process, although we have heard from IT that they are expecting a process to become available through Maestro, but we don't know what the timeline for that is. And so at the moment, if you would like to have a team created for your course, you will need to reach out to the IT service through their request form that you can find on the U Ottawa IT website. You can also call to the IT service support desk. However, you are going to have to provide quite a bit of information, so it really makes sense to just send in the form. One thing that we do want to point out here is that the U Ottawa IT team is managing Microsoft Teams, not us at the TLSS. So please make sure that you're reaching out to them for support with technological challenges or for setting up your courses, because that's not something that we have access to support in the system. When you put in your request for your team, you will need to indicate exactly the course code and syllabus from UO syllabus. We want to make sure that that information is exact. And also, if you're talking about a merge course, you're going to want to indicate the courses involved. So once your team or course space is created, you'll then need to go into Teams and add your students and TAs manually to your team at this point in time. So again, moving forward, we're hearing from IT, there is going to be integration with Maestro that will allow this process to happen automatically. But at this point in time, this is a manual process. We have also heard that some IT departments, depending on your faculty, are supporting with an initial load of your students, but be aware that after that, it's up to you to be managing if you have new students added to the course or if students are removed. So at this point in time, if you don't need your course right now and you're thinking you might require it down the road, you might want to wait until that integration with Maestro becomes available, because at that point, it will be handled all automatically. So at this point, what we'll do is we'll step in and we'll talk through how you add students to your course in case you're in that situation. Of course, this is also how you would need to be adding your TAs. And then we'll move on to talking again a bit more about that process. All right, so here I am in Teams, and if you're not yet familiar with the Teams interface, what you're going to see over here is kind of the main menu that we're going to use to access all of the different functionality. And so we'll start off by coming to our teams and then going to the team which has been created for me, which is my demo at this situation. So from here, to add individuals to my space, I'm going to click on the ellipses beside the name of my team or my course space. A lot of the functionality in Teams is hidden behind ellipses, so just be aware of that. And I'm going to go to Manage Team. Here in Manage Team, I'm going to go ahead and add a member. And I'm going to add my colleague, Melanie. So note, when it comes to adding individuals to your courses, whether they're students or your TAs, Teams does not, Teams differentiates between English and French characters. And so if I put in ME, it's no longer going to find Melanie. I need to make sure that I'm actually using the correct accents and being exact with the individual I'm looking to find. So at this point, once I've found the individual, I can go ahead and click Add. And as long as I haven't yet added Melanie to this course, she would be added to it. When new members are added to the course, they're going to automatically become members, as you can see below, and you should consider members rather the student role associated with your courses. If you're going to be adding TAs, we recommend that you put a tag beside them as a TA, but that you leave their role as member unless they're going to be supporting you with the enrollment side of things. Because there is no actual TA role, if you set them up as an owner, they really have full access to your course, and that might not always be appropriate. Okay. So continuing with some of these initiation steps, as I've now added all of the individuals I need to in my course, the next thing I'm going to do is actually step out of Teams into an associated program called Microsoft Stream. Now, these steps are very important if you are going to be recording your lectures in the system, because what they are going to do is restrict access to your course material to just those students who are in your courses. So to do that, I'm going to come back over here to my main menu and go to these three ellipses, and I'm going to click on Stream. So Stream is the tool that Microsoft Teams uses to record and then manage all of the videos that you make. From here, I'm going to come up to this little world, the website, and I'm actually going to go to the Stream website. So from here, what I want to be doing is setting up what's called a channel that I'm going to add my videos to, which is going to give me one location where all of my videos associated with my course is. And again, it's also going to set up that restriction so that only students who are in my courses are able to see those videos. As you can see, if I make my videos public in Streams, they're actually available to all the members of the organization, and they're rather advertised to them as well. And so we don't recommend that you make your recordings public. Instead, we recommend that you restrict access only to those individuals in your course. So again, to do so, I'm going to come here to Create, and I'm going to create a channel. I'm going to name my channel what would be associated with my course. I'm going to call this webinar. And under group, I'm going to type in, again, exactly the information associated with my particular team that has been created in Teams. So this way, only those individuals who have been added to that team will have access to the videos that I'm going to place in this channel. Once I've done that, I'm going to come down here and click Create. Again, these are some one-time initiation and setup states that I need to take care of before I can go ahead and really go through more of the day-to-day processes. So now that I've finished those initiation processes, I'm actually going to step into my Brightspace course. And this is where I'm going to be adding the link for my lectures. Again, by adding the link to my lectures here in Brightspace, I don't have to go through managing multiple channels and dealing with that in Teams. It also means that my students who are likely already using Brightspace to follow their grades and hand in their assignments can come here and they'll be able to access it from this location versus having to monitor two separate areas. So in order to add that, what I'm going to do is go to the location where I want to add the link to my meeting, which could be a separate module that is, live lecture, or in this case, I'm going to add it to this particular week. And to do so, I'm going to click Add Activity, and I'm going to click MS Teams. The system is then going to ask me to sign in, which I did earlier, and so it's not asking me that right now. You would be able to just go ahead and click Sign In, and your single sign-on will go through. Once you've done that, you would then click Create Meeting Link. Here, I'm going to provide a title for this particular meeting. And I do recommend that you put in the date and time with the time zone, just to really help emphasize for your students when they need to be logging in. And then you can click Create. You do not need to worry about this particular time being provided here. When you create a link, it is persistent, and we'll talk a little bit about how that's going to impact things. So I'm going to click Create. And then here, before I click Insert, I want to click Meeting Options. What Meeting Options are going to do is open a separate window in the background, and this is going to allow me to actually put in place some of those classroom management tools that I might be expecting. So to do this, under Who Can Present, I am going to indicate that only I can present. What this is going to do is remove the option from students to mute all and to disconnect you and other attendees from the meeting. So if I don't go through this step, my students will have access to all of those capabilities, and it can be a little bit challenging to manage them in the classroom. So again, I'm going to take the time here to set this up so that only I have access to that, to those settings. If there's a TA who's going to be helping me, I can also provide them that access as well. Once I've done that, I'm going to click Save, and then I can close this window. The reason I need to do this now is because if I don't do it at this initiation step, I actually no longer have access to change those settings. So very important as I go through creating my meetings in the system, I want to make sure that I'm remembering to click on Meeting Options so that students don't have full access to be able to get into all sorts of trouble in the background. Once I've done that, I can then go ahead and click Insert, and that lecture link is now inserted into this course. Another key step that I need to make sure I'm doing is coming to this particular item, going to Edit Properties in Place, and telling Brightspace that this needs to open as an external resource. If I don't do this, my meeting will not launch for me or the students. And so, very important, as I go through this process, once I've added my link into my module, I need to make sure it's opening as an external resource. The other thing I can do here is change the information associated with this particular lecture if I made a mistake with the date and time, and I can also add a description to it. It's a good idea to remember that we are recommending that your students and you should be downloading and using the Teams app rather than trying to access your meetings through the browser, especially you as the host. By actually having the app downloaded on your computer, this makes it so that you can use some of the core functionality like screen shares and the whiteboard. And for your students, we recommend that you remind them in this description that they'll need, if they are accessing it through the browser, they need to be doing so using Google Chrome, Edge, or Safari. And we have an example of what this text might look like in the handout associated with today's webinar. As you can see, it is a bit easier just in terms of some of the directions. Not only will they need to use those specific browsers, but they'll also need to allow third-party plugins to have that launching in the system. Again, it kind of just makes things a bit easier if everybody has the app and is using that instead. So once I've gone ahead and done that, for you and your students, you're now able to come here into Brightspace and click this link to open the meeting. As I mentioned, meetings created in Teams are persistent. So what this means is that even though this particular meeting says this date and time, it's actually active as long as the students can see it and they have access to it. So you may choose to hide this link here in Brightspace so that your students can't see it. And that might be really appropriate if you have this link here just so that you can step in and record. But if you are going to make it available to your students, we recommend that you let them know somewhere else when the link will become available, because it can be a little bit anxiety inducing for them to not see the link here. The other thing is as well, you would need to be coming back here in order to unhide the link to make sure that you and the students have access to it. If you don't want to be coming back to Brightspace in order to get this link, what you can do is come to the dropdown and go to Edit Link, and then copy this URL into something like a Word document or a notepad on your desktop. And that way you have access to it without having to come back into Brightspace. If you need to cancel this meeting, all you need to do is just come to the Associated Actions dropdown and click Delete Topic and remove it. You don't need to do anything to it in Microsoft Teams. And if you need to change that date and time, again, because these meetings are persistent, all you need to do is just edit properties in place and provide a different date and time in the text. You don't actually need to go and edit anything in the meeting itself. So once it's time for you to start your meeting, what you'll do again is you can just come here and click on the link, and it's going to ask you, do you want to launch in your browser or Microsoft Teams? As I mentioned, we want to make sure that we're always launching this in Teams. So here in Teams, it's now asking me to go in and enter this meeting, and I'm going to go ahead and do so. And I'm going to mute my microphone there, and hopefully David won't chime in and tell me that he can't hear me anymore. And I'm going to go ahead and click Join Now. If you haven't yet had an opportunity to explore the Microsoft Teams interface, just to tell you a little bit about what it's going to look like and some of the particular features that you want to keep in mind as you're doing your meetings. So first off, here is our participants list. So in our participants list, I'm going to see all of the individuals who are participating in the meeting, and I can also download this at any point to get an attendance list at that point in time. The other thing I can do is if there's multiple individuals, I can mute everyone or mute other individuals one by one. But keep in mind, they always have access to unmute themselves in Microsoft Teams. The other thing that I'll use the participants list for is to see if people have raised their hand. So this is something that'll be shown here in the participants list. So this, if I'm asking my students to raise their hands to get my attention, I'll need to be keeping an eye on this. I also have the chat. Chats in Microsoft Teams are part of the automatic meeting launch, and so this is something your students will have access to when you're holding meetings with them. This is a place where you can share documents with them, you can answer questions, and where they can reach out to you. If you act here, it's going to provide also a notification to the individual that you're speaking to them individually, and they'll see that as an activity notification as well. Of course, another major thing that I'm going to want to be doing here in Teams is sharing my screen. And you'll see that listed here as share. So to share screen, I click on that button, and then I'm going to have many options. And you can see here that because it integrates directly with PowerPoint, it's going to ask me if I wanted to show these PowerPoints, if I wanted to show a particular program window, or if I wanted to share my desktop. Typically, we recommend that you choose the application specifically. So that way you don't have to be worried about notifications or the like that might pop up while you're sharing your screen. Note that once I'm sharing a screen, I'll no longer be able to see my chat or my participants list. So let your students know that. Again, it can be challenging for them to reach out and get your attention. So it's a good idea to have a process in place for that. This is also a place where I can activate a whiteboard that is part of Microsoft Teams. Although you might be asked to download an app, you don't need to. I can say use the whiteboard in Teams instead, and it's going to load the in Teams whiteboard where myself and my students can collaborate and work together to produce documents. If I have a stylus set up at my computer, it'll integrate with this as well, which can be very useful if I'm going to be writing notes. However, do keep in mind that using it in this fashion does mean that all of your students also have the ability to add their own thoughts and to provide feedback during your use of the whiteboard as well. So once I'm done sharing, I would close that. It's also a good thing to note at this point in time, just in terms of some of the other functionality that you might want to use during your meetings. At the moment, Microsoft does not have an integrated breakout room or polling option. There are ways to get similar functionality to those tools that you might be familiar with in Adobe Connect or in Zoom. However, they're not directly integrated to happen live during your meetings at this point in time. So last but not least, one of the other things that you want to be doing and that we are going to be talking about today is recording. So to start a recording in Teams, I'm going to come to these three ellipses and I'm going to simply click Start Recording. As the meeting happens, it's now going to be recorded. We do recommend that you let your students know that they are going to be recorded so that they're aware of it happening and they know what to expect. Before I exit this meeting, I do want to make sure that I am stopping this recording, as that gives the system a chance to actually start integrating it, and it makes the recording a bit more stable in the background. So once this recording has been processed, I'm then going to go ahead and make it available to students in this class, again through Stream. The reason for this is because if I make it available just in this fashion, it's a little bit clunky for both myself and my students to know where they need to go to find these recordings and for me to be able to manage them if anything's happening. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this meeting. And although I could wait here for this meeting to finish processing, what I'm going to do instead is just start navigating to streams, knowing that this is where it's going to need to be happening. So to do that again, I'm going to come to these three ellipses and I'm going to click on Stream. So here in Stream, I'm then going to come up and go to the website. If I had this website bookmarked or open already, I could just go to it directly as well. So from here, I'm then going to go to my content and go to my videos, and we'll see if that video has finished processing. Yeah, it looks like it had. It was a very short video. So now what I'm going to do is go forward with some of the processes associated with making sure that this video is going to be available to those students in my class and that they have access to some of those supported features in Brightspace, which is where I'm going to move it in the end. So to do that, I'm going to click this Update Video Details. And the first thing I'm going to do is indicate the language that this video is in. So by choosing English, I'm going to get an auto-generated caption file, which is pretty okay, depending on the accent and how quickly you talk. And so I would really recommend that once the caption file has been generated, you take a few moments to come back and review and make sure it is accurate to what you were hoping to say. The other thing I'm going to want to do at this point is turn comments off. One of the really great features about Microsoft Teams for collaboration is that every item has its own background chat where you and individuals can be talking about things specifically involved with that item. What that does mean, though, is that not only is there a chat associated with that lecture that I had with my students that they might be coming into and commenting on after the meeting and before the meeting, if that link is made available to them, is that if I don't turn comments off here, it actually also provides them another location associated with this video where they can be having those conversations as well. And so just to make my management of those different conversations a little bit easier, I want to make sure I'm turning this comments off. I don't need to receive their comments about this video. That's not the purpose that it's being integrated into the course. The next thing I'm going to do here is come and indicate to Teams who I want to be sharing this with. And so to do so, I'm going to come under Share With, and I'm going to go to Channels, and I'm going to select that channel, that's not how you spell webinar, that I'd set up just a few moments ago. And so now when I do that, it's going to be displayed to that particular group of individuals, and I'm going to click Apply. So now any individual from that class who comes in and looks to see this video is going to be able to find it. But it's not very user-friendly for them to be trying to locate it in Teams or Stream. And so what I'm going to do is now add it to Brightspace. Again, that's where they're looking for the information. I'm going to make it easy for them to find it. To do so, I'm then going to come down here to this Share option, and I'm going to click on Embed. I'm then going to turn off Show Info. Again, I don't need my students to like this video, and I'm going to set it to responsive and choose the largest size. Having done that, I'm then going to copy this information here and then take that with me to Brightspace so that I can make it available for them there. I'm going to then open up my Brightspace course, and I'm going to go to my content, and now I'm going to add that video to wherever it needs to go. Again, this might depend a little bit on my particular navigation for the course. So I could either add it to this week, knowing that students will come back here to find the information associated with this particular week, or I can go to recorded lectures, which is another module I've made up, and I can add it here. So to do so, I'm very simply going to click Upload Create, go to Video or Audio, and then here I'm going to paste that code that I just got from Stream. I'm then going to title this particular video, and I want to make sure that I am allowing it access. Then I can go ahead and click Save, and the video is now going to be available to my students as they're coming here in Brightspace. So again, it's giving them one centralized location, which is very easy for them to navigate to find all of the information associated both with my lectures and also the recordings that I have done for them. So that's the process that we're recommending in terms of both initiating your connections in Teams and making the recordings available. So just a really quick review of what we did. So we talked about first using Brightspace to create your Teams meeting link, and then going into Brightspace to start your meetings from that location. Then you're going to go into Teams to actually hold your meetings or your lectures or record your sessions. Once you have a recording, which is going to be in Stream, you're then going to add that recording to a class channel that you've already created, again, so that we're restricting the access to the people in your class. And then I'm going to take the information associated with that video so that I can add it to Brightspace to bring it back to that centralized location. So having gone through all of those processes and talked a little bit about the different tools that you have access to for your video conferencing needs, when would we recommend Microsoft Teams, or when should you consider it as a tool to be using for this? So Teams is really great for that managing asynchronous group interactions, especially if your students are going to be collaborating intensely with each other or persistently throughout the whole semester, and you want to be able to monitor those conversations and provide support very effectively and efficiently. If you're planning on using some of those more collaborative features, then it makes sense to be using Teams as your video conferencing tool because it's limiting the number of different applications that you and your students need to be participating in. And so with that, that's the end of the presentation that we'll be doing today.